We are live. This is Pitchdeck Asia. My name is Graham Brown, joined in the studio by Maryline Marquet. Welcome.
Well, thank you for welcoming me here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. We're going to do a journey today into the world of Healint and digital health. And also, I'm glad to welcome a fellow French ambassador to the studio here. We have a very strong contingent here in Singapore from France. So
I'm sure.
how long have you been in Singapore?
4 years.
4 years. Come from?
The UK.
How long were you in the UK?
3 years.
All right. Okay. So was that your sort of first stint abroad?
No.
Where else have you been?
Long journey. Was raised in the Middle East.
Oh, wow. Whereabouts?
Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
And my dream was to work in the US. So my first job was in New York. My first daughter was born in New York. And then traveled a bit, met my husband in Belgium. And we continuously move from one place to the other.
Amazing.
And then we have 3 children, so we're going to slow down.
Yeah.
I guess.
I bet it was a great education for them, though.
Yeah. Well, I have 3. One was born on each continent, and I'll stop here. That's all I can say.
You're running out of continents as well, so.
Yeah, the other options I'm not too keen.
All right, great. Well, that is an interesting narrative as well about the sort of the entrepreneur's journey as well, and how, I mean, I've lived in many different countries myself. So, the fact you move around, you see different things, you get insights, you see how things are done in different countries and so on. Those are the soft skills that make great entrepreneurs. Well, I say so for myself. So, but maybe we can talk a little bit about that as well as we go into this. So your background, did you come from the world of pharma, from health? How would you describe yourself?
So I actually came from the investment banking. So I learned some skills around numbers, I guess, and analytical skills. And moved to, after I graduated from the MBA in SEAD, I joined the pharmaceutical industry. And I discovered a very interesting world. And with the new word AI and digital, there was something out there that was attracting. And that's why I'm here today. Yeah, I guess this is the merger of 2 thoughts in my head and Cam's real. Okay.
Well, we're going to go there. We're going to talk about Healint. So in the pharmaceutical world, were you involved in drug discovery or the marketing side, or help us understand?
I'm a pure commercial person. The only thing I know how to do is sell.
Right.
So everything about selling. I started as a project manager, for just to discover the world of pharmaceutical, and then I joined product manager role, marketing roles, and then there was this new type of functions that was health solutions, meaning we knew there was something beyond the pill, but we didn't know what it was, so we called it globally health solutions. So I entered that world through the marketing arm, commercial arm. We believed that we could sell better if we sold something beyond the pill.
Right.
And that was beyond educating a patient. It was just to create some sort of new solutions. We didn't know what it was. And that was like 8 years ago, maybe, this new world. I was in Janssen, so part of J&J, big house. And I loved it. And it was my first love in pharmaceutical industry.
Yeah. What was the health solutions part? Was that sort of, once you've sold the product, there's sort of services that go into that?
Yeah.
Like a SaaS model for customers, if you like?
No, exactly. It was we had to define what it was. Yeah. Before me it was the pill, but we knew that post prescriptions we could do some things to help solve some problems. You have to have a problem right before you solve it, and the patients had several. One of them was that we are all of us non-adherent. We don't respect the rules, especially as French, I guess we're not, but we don't respect what we're being told if we don't understand why we have to do it. Right. It's like a child, you don't tell them why they have not to, and they won't listen. So you have to educate, but in a wide terms, and you have to support that education with some tools. So the basic one, we don't remember those that are too young, probably in the startup business, but you and I can remember the time where we didn't have iPhones, and just to be reminded to take a pill was called a reminder. And now it seems obvious, but we needed to bring that support, extra support to a patient, because they had so many things to do, raise their kids, go to work, and they forgot their pill. And so we started with this adherence problem, but beyond adherence, there's so many other things that a patient doesn't know how to do, how to inject himself, how to ask questions to his doctors. And so this wide this wide problem was to be addressed by someone. The pharmaceutical industry, is keen on doing it because they have a goal to sell more drugs, but they also have a bit of cash, like we can say. And so they were probably in there for that reason. And the startup world is just coming at the right time because we all have so many ideas that we can bring to life. And then the pharmaceutical industry is our best partner in that sense. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So we've got a really good background as to why you're here. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. Let's take them one at a time. Firstly, describe to us what Healint is, so we can put it on the table and understand what box it sits in. And then I'm going to ask you why. So why you? Why are you doing this? Right, let's do the first one. What is Healint?
So Healint was founded by 3 people, 1 tech, 1 marketing, and 1 product person that wanted to solve a problem. Healint stands for health intelligence. So as you can see, we put the AI word in the title here, in the name. So those 3 people thought they could solve the okay, how do I put it? You asked me first that which box we're in.
Yeah,
we're in the digital health. And why that? It's because with digital tools, so the phone, you can solve many issues, and we're solving the real data analytics problem, meaning how we solve this a problem with gathering data, analyzing them, and giving something back to the user, the patient.
Got it.
What it is that we give them back is prediction. We can predict a health event. We can predict an attack. We can predict something that will happen to them, and so that idea came in the mind of 3 great people. And what they did is they created a front end, the app. Many users are using it. And today, with that much data, we're able to predict more and more things. Now it's the way we're going to give back that is hard to do. I think a lot of people understood that data was the key. And now it's how do you give back? How do you predict? How do you give that message back to someone? No one wants to hear that they're going to die. No one wants to hear they're going to have an issue today. So this is where we are today, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, and that sort of almost goes back to the rules part, that people have got to be motivated to yield the data, because then you get up-to-date data and people stay on top of it and keep their app updated and so on. So, collecting the data is one thing, but it's a 2-way process. They have to get something out of it. Okay, so I want to ask you about that when we get into the pitch deck. Why? Why you? Why Maryline? Why are you doing this? You are from the safe world of pharma and investment banking even. Why go into the startup world, and why are you doing this particularly? Why do you think this sort of makes sense for you now? Especially, you've got a family. It's a risk to go into the world of startups and so on.
Yeah. I ask myself this often. Yeah, you can't avoid this thing. Why didn't I stay in the safe world? I think it's something beyond you, something that attracts you, that you want to change the world. Yeah, it's the big thing. Yeah, but we want to change something. We know we have the skills, and in the team, they're great skills. And I saw in this team the great skills of solving a problem, and I thought I'm going to add to that. Yeah. And of course, I think there is a big part of the ego and crazy madness, if you want to call that mix, and then says, okay, I can help, and then we can solve, and you're just going in. Then once you're in, you're thinking, how am I getting out of there? But that's the case for anyone that has a mad idea, unless they're too arrogant to say they're going to do it by themselves. So why me? Because I believed when I joined the pharmaceutical industry, that was my first intuition. I believed I could do better for my kids by bringing new things. And I was not a doctor myself. Yeah, I couldn't save them. So I needed to bring my little thoughts and brain to the table to say, okay, what can we do beyond? How can I help my kids be adherent? How can I help my kids not being sick? Well, 2 things. You can help them by giving them a solution beyond the pill, and by predicting what's going to happen. And so it comes along the way, a lot of genetic tests before, they're born, and you want to know everything before they're born, how they're going to get sick, when. But once they're here, you also want to prevent them from having a bad day. And that's why I did it. And I think my biggest motivation are my 3 kids and a little bit of my ego.
Yeah.
I think, let's see.
Be honest, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of the madness. You have to believe that, I think like Peter Thiel from PayPal, the billionaire investor, asks startups, what is it that the universal people disagree with you on? That, when you have conversations about what you're doing, people are like, no, I don't see that, or, I don't get it, or, you're banging your head against the wall. So there's a little bit of madness. You have to believe ahead of the market until people catch up, right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And I think we're all mad, by the way, at Healint. I'm just saying this so that if they listen.
Well, it's all relative. So,
Yes.
okay. All right. Well, let me ask you then, taking that forward, what is the problem? What is the problem that we're trying to solve? And I can dive into the pitch deck to maybe sort of flash up some pointers for this. And bear in mind that some people are listening rather than watching, so they might not see what we're seeing now. If I jump forward to slide 4 on the pitch deck, let's look at the problem from the industry perspective. So help us understand. I mean, I'm not of that world, and we're looking at a table which has a lot about pharma and data and so on. Tell us in a nub, what is this about? What's going on at the moment? What's the sort of meta trend?
Sure. The industry and the governments are facing, I don't know, a lot of us are saying that we can't be ruled by some doctors or the industry. So the industry is facing themselves. How do I defend myself of proving that my drugs is worth something? And that's called the real world evidence. In the pharma world, that's how we call it. In the real world, we just call it data. How do we prove with our own data, the real world, us, that we can use this drug in the most efficient way? So this is what the pressure is coming from. The governments are saying, I'm not reimbursing until you prove me that the real people, not in your clinical trials specifically, but beyond, are also going to use it right. And that's the real world. So we are proving the evidence with collecting this data that the real world is using it either the right way or the wrong way, if the wrong way, course correcting it. So far, we're only proving, and to be honest, that the clinical trials have done a great job of proving that the drugs were working for this type of people. We're proving it the real world way.
So let me understand that. So I'm not of your world,
No,
and I'm sure people watching may ask as well. When testing is done, the validation's done in pharmaceuticals. It's clinical testing. It's the trials, which take a long time, the approval process, and people take the pills and they write down the notes and they do it in a lab and so on. But what you're saying is, okay, now take those people and put them in the wild, right?
Go to work, do their lives, yeah?
Yeah. Busy, forget, tired, bored of this. Let's see what happens. Is that what you're saying? Let's validate. Okay.
Exactly. So we call it phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, many phases. That's what takes time and money.
Right.
Before phase 3, it's all done in-house or really in controlled way. Phase 4 starts to be wild, and then the real world happens, yeah? And that's what we're proving by collecting the data. And you're exactly right. In the clinical, we have to take notes. We have to give back to the doctors, and it's collected in a very proper way. I come from that world. There's nothing hidden here. But what do we want to believe as other people outside? We want to believe, your peers. You want to believe your neighbor. And so this apps that we create, the front end, is the way to collect in your everyday life. Once you're in the wild, you have a few minutes to remember a lot of things, and you just want to capture that information, and in an easy way, but in a true way. And that's where AI comes, because we can't really lie with a phone where we are. So the location is picked up. We can't lie about the weather. It's picked up by some other people that joins this app. And so you also want a tool that is proof any controversy, I would say.
Okay, great. Well, you set up the solution part. We'll go there and talk about the app itself. Just to drill down on the problem a little bit. So we've identified there's an industry problem, which is that a lot of the validation happens in clinical conditions because they're clinical trials, so that's what they're called. But in the real world, it kind of breaks down a little bit. Do you have sort of any data or insights actually how that breaks down? So, for example, if we ran, and I don't know what kind of drugs this would apply to, or if it's like nutrition or pharma, for example, on the disease side, for example, if you had an oncology drug, it works in trials, but in reality, what happens is 60% drop off after 3 months. Can you sort of enlighten us in what you know about that?
Yeah. So I'll tell you the problem we're trying to solve, and we have to be very humble. And I told you about ego, but we have to be humble. We're trying to solve one thing at a time, all of us. We can't solve everything. So today, Healint is trying to solve the neurology problem, and one specific problem we've been addressing in the last 4 years is migraine. So exactly what you were saying. 50% of people are never going to be diagnosed migraine. For many reasons. They don't know where to go, they don't know what they have, and they're not capturing the symptoms of their disease. So you're solving an undiagnosed problem. The other problem you're solving is that out of a GP training, it's about 4 hours to be trained on how to diagnose a migraine or headache. 12 hours of all training of a specialist. But you have to realize that it's about 3% of their consultation as a GP and 30% of HCP. So they're seeing a lot of patients with that disease, and they're not really trained to be diagnosed, to diagnose. So, okay, people aren't diagnosed. People are not trained to diagnose. That's the big thing. And once they're diagnosed, and when I'm saying who is diagnosed, it's about 1 in 7 people. 1 billion on our planet has suffered or is suffering currently of migraines. 1 billion. And so half of them are not diagnosed. And those that are diagnosed, they're unhappy about either the drug they take or about their life. And so you're solving 2 things. Helping the diagnosis to happen faster, giving them the information to diagnose faster. There is you need to have a few information in the last 2 to 3 months to be able to capture that information and diagnose. And for the patient to be able to go see a doctor and say, please, believe me. I know it's invisible, my pain, but please believe me. It captured my sensors of my phone, of my app is capturing that. Okay. Then imagine in the best world, they see the right person and they're diagnosed. Then they say, what do you give me? And they have the options to treat acute. So it means, I'm having something horrible, give me something now, or prevent, so either by telling them what's going to happen or giving them a preventive drugs. And that's the second thing we do. We're able to predict when it's going to happen and which drug you're supposed to take.
Based on all the data you've gathered?
All the data we've gathered over the years. But it's a massive issue and everyone is interested. We talked about the industry and the government, but the employers are massively interested. Employers are having people not coming to work. It's the second cause of short-term absence. So one time you have the flu, the second time is because you have a headache or a migraine and you can't get up. You can't go to work. And those employers out there, everyone is interested and there's no solutions. Well, now there is.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned employers and the benefits for them as well. I mean, obviously the cost for them is phenomenal, and as well as beyond the cost, the human factor as well about well-being and so on. You have a couple of market slides. We'll have a look at those as well and then talk about the solution. And I wonder, without sort of preempting what you're going to talk about, is this applicable? I know you're focusing very much on one problem, getting that right with migraines, 1 billion people. Would this work and be applicable to very systemic diseases like, for example, diabetes? Or would it work for example, what is very much on people's minds these days is mental health and mental well-being. So, bipolar, for example, which I guess lend themselves very well to tracking, of symptoms and, causes and attacks and so on. So
I mean, there are different ways of seeing it. One way is who has migraines and who do we know really well. So we know by the comorbidity they have. So bipolar, we have 5% of people having bipolar. So we know them, So
you're profiling them.
We are profiling to see who do we understand. That's one thing. So 30% have mental health issues as a result or as before they have migraine. So these are the people we know, and the autoimmune disease. This is all connected to the neurology system and your genetics. So this is what we're studying, and you're right, we're going to go beyond migraine, but it has to be meaningful. We should know them, and we should know if our predictives or algorithms are working. And that's what we've been looking into, of course, and we're going to release something in Q2. So.
All right, we're getting ahead of ourselves then. We'll go into the growth plans as well. So let's start. We're going to go, before we go into the solution, just have a look at the market size itself. So I'm going to flip backwards and forwards a little bit, Maryline. So you have a slide in number 3 here, which gives us
the size.
Some data on, you just talked about migraines, for example. So this is more of the profiling stuff, isn't it? Which is, you have, more women than men get migraines for whatever reason, and more parents than non-parents get migraine. Okay.
Let's not go to that.
Exactly. We can think of many reasons why that might be the case, right? So
and those that work more than those that don't work. Funny enough, no? What causes migraines?
It might be cause and effect, or it might be effect and cause. We don't know. So, all right. So we've got some profiling data, but you have later on in the pitch deck some sort of more macro market slides as well, population analysis, and also some words I don't understand, like Comorbidities.
Comorbidity, yeah, and I
Explain
used it already.
All right. What is this market
Sure.
slide about? Can you explain a little bit?
So
And
this slide
both
is
of them.
So those two slides are referring to the populations we've looked at and studied, and that's the population that is using our apps. It is not reflecting the market out there. So 1 billion people out there having migraines. It's quite the same everywhere in the world. Yeah, more women, and the population is about 10 to 15% anywhere. But we've captured first in the US, then Europe, and we're coming to Asia and growing. So that's the first slide. The second slide is telling you comorbidities means what other disease do you have? Because rarely, as an individual, you have one. And it's either it's the cause or your genes that causes it, but it's that's what it says. So when you suffer migraine, 1 out of 2 suffers of depressions.
Right.
There are 2 reasons for that. Chronic conditions, any chronic conditions, diabetes, anything that lasts, So like a marriage causes a bit of depression sometimes. It's because it lasts and you have to fight it.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope my husband is listening, but in a positive way. So the mental disorders are here. And the muscle pain and the joint pains, it's caused by this disease because your neurologist system, your head, you want to bang your head on the wall. That's what causes tensions everywhere. So your bones are suffering. That's what it says. So 1 out of 4 is suffering muscle and joint pain.
Right. So
Now,
you basically, it could be like a leading indicator of something else more serious.
Yes.
And therefore the whole idea of tracking helps you identify maybe other diseases. So migraines and maybe into other morbidities.
I can give you a terrible and a great experience we've had is that person that was tracking his migraines led to a brain tumor diagnosis. It's because the neck pain, the migraines, and some other things that they were tracking led them to think with us that there was a brain beyond, something worse. So they went to see, they did a scan, and they found the brain tumor.
Right. This is a classic case of somebody going to a doctor normally and saying, I've got a headache. They get diagnosed as a migraine sufferer, and then they go away, and then 2 weeks later they're dead. That happens.
It is. So it is exactly how it happens. So it's supposed to help people go beyond what they're not really sure. And like I told you, this invisible pain that we're all suffering, that our husband doesn't believe when we say it because it's women. Yeah. Our employer doesn't believe in it. So he's sick again.
Yeah, it's skiving, or they're just bunking off.
So this is the tool to prove it.
Okay. Awesome. Well, there's a lot of money being spent on this as well. You said 56 billion on migraine medicine alone. And is that generally like just, Nurofen or
So these are the cheap ones, but you can go to the most expensive ones if they're badly used. And that's the case for any drugs. No pharmaceutical industry would want to sell it bad because the real world will prove wrong. So you want the right drugs to the right person at the right time. And I told you acute, meaning when I want to bang my head, you want to use Nurofen, but you want to use it right. Otherwise, you're just using pills and not right. And the other drugs, there are many other drugs. There are also many medical devices that are reimbursed. If they're wrongly used, they're costing to the system without solving your problem as an individual.
Okay.
And that costs a lot of money to everyone.
Let's talk about your solution then.
Okay.
So
I already said so much.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a look at it on the pitch deck. We've got a few slides here about what it actually is. So if I can sort of jump back to slides 6 and 7, there's sort of a breakdown of the actual platform itself. So, you've talked about this is kind of more the ecosystem and the workflow here of how the data feeds. Let's talk about the actual app itself and how it works. Tell us about what it is, how it works.
So all of you should download who are listening today or after Migraine Buddy. Migraine Buddy is our first app that we launched 4 years ago. Migraine Buddy is it's a very intuitive app that works for an attack. So you have a crisis, and that's where you collect the information. So that's why you come back, because a migrainer has several migraines and comes back and comes back. You're not asking them questions. Migraine Buddy has been plugged onto a back end, that's the ecosystem, so that we could collect and analyze data. So it's not only what you see, it's what we do with what we see and collect. There are about 200 data points that we collect, 200 data points of you, meaning what you tell me from, telling me I have an attack, this is the pain, but also what you don't tell me, where you are, the weather, did you sleep, did you walk, did you talk to someone? I'm going to capture this information. And of course, with your consent at the beginning. So this is the app asking a lot of questions to be able to tell you something meaningful. I need that. And for your doctor, it's the same thing. So the app has...
Just let me ask you about that. Is that the data that you collect, and you've got 200 data points that can range for everything from what you ate to the weather. So are you doing that because the nature of a migraine is it's very specific to individuals, or B, people don't know what causes it, and therefore we're trying to work out, people could actually discover it's barometric air pressure that causes migraines. Everything else was just sort of a random red herring. And do we know?
So we do know some of the factors, but they differ from one person to the other. Weather is huge, so we had to collect the weather. The humidity, the pressure in the air, the pollution will impact your day. The sleep. You sleep too much, you sleep too less. You've interrupted your sleep. This is a massive issue for any chronic conditions, to be honest, but migraines is definite impact. What are the sensors? If you walk and if you don't walk, so the exercise, too much activity, not too much. So we have to capture those data and correlate for you as an individual.
So you're not actually trying to identify necessarily what the cause is, but what are the sort of input factors that create the attack. So it's just so I understand, because for example, like you say, maybe it's because this person sleeps too much that they're having a migraine attack. Well, you can maybe say, well, we don't know that, but we know that when they do sleep a lot,
they don't have a migraine,
or they do, or whatever the input factors are, and that may be another indicator of something else underneath, right? Yes. I'm sort of drilling down a little bit as I'm a data guy, so I like to understand.
So you imagine that you're telling me that, I didn't sleep and I have had this migraine. So I'm thinking, maybe that's the cause. But I see that you actually slept well. And then in the last 3 months, whenever you slept well, you didn't have migraine. So it's not that, it's something else. And I need to find out what it is. So yes, we always think that it's caused by our children and by the lack of sleep, but it's probably something else.
Yeah.
Often not. It's your lifestyle. Lifestyle meaning if you've eaten processed food or alcohol, not so good for you. But you might forget, because we're French, we drink wine. Yeah.
We all forget.
And then we forget the next morning that we had that wine. We thought, I didn't sleep well. No, actually it was the alcohol you drank or the chips you ate, And that's what we're trying to dissociate. And I mean, that's where the greatness of data analysts are, I mean, the team is always working out those numbers and pulling and saying, no, it's not this. Let's remove it. Actually, the cause is behind this, And as an analytical brain, you want to believe but you don't. I mean, you need statisticians behind.
Okay. So your app is available on app stores. It's freely available for people to download. Yes. To what extent are GPs or medical professionals using the app or accessing the data on the other side? Is that working? Are people on board with that, or is that next step?
It was a first step. I mean, they had to convince so we call it key opinion leaders, the guru of the neurologist, that it was meaningful. So we didn't build it with them, but once it was built, we had to prove that it was useful for their patients, and they're all bought in. So the neurologist in Singapore uses it. The top ones are using it, and they've definitely been convinced that it was useful. GPs is a long way. We love GPs, and actually, of course, if we could, call it out there and say, you have 4 hours training, you don't know how to diagnose, you're going to miss out. Look at what is recorded. Would be great. It's going to take a long time. But all the neurologists in the world and all the headache societies and migraine societies have been using it. And that's why it's working quite well for us. Not well enough. We need to have more people. We always do,
Always. So if you came to me as I was your GP or a neurologist consultant, and you had a migraine, would I then ask to see the data? Would that be...
so I could send you the report, beforehand at the moment, or just show you my app, and you'd be able in a very quick way to see what I had, the symptoms, the length and the duration of my migraine, and the peak intensity. Those factors you don't remember. And then I think also it's more captured, not only because I have the app, but all the tools we've put in place to capture that information. We've created so now I'm talking, tech thing, but the natural language processing, everyone is talking about it. It's because the voice tells a lot of things. And Alexa, Google Home came in our lives, and we don't really know how to use it yet, but we are starting to do it. So you can say, hey, Alexa, I have a migraine. Let's talk later. It's recording you have a migraine. We'll come back to you and say, you've had a migraine. Did it stop? How was it? Blah, blah, blah. This is why we call it, the new world. I mean, this is the future is now, but with those tools, we're making it easier. And I think this is why we have more data than anyone.
So I'm curious about the longer term vision of that as well. Is that will there be? It sounds like obviously this is an in to many other diseases and conditions. Obviously, you're sort of mastering a very narrow bandwidth condition, which you know how it works. It's easily controllable. Master that, and then move into other areas. And then from that, will there be a world where everybody's carrying this app, collecting data? For the medical professionals, I'm sure for them, they could preempt a lot of attacks, like in migraines, but a lot of conditions, like, would there be, are we going to that world where a doctor or consultant or even a bot can reach out to somebody and say, hey, look, I've just seen some of your personal KPI or personal indicators, your blood indicators, or your, how you've been sounding, and I think there's a problem. It could be a blood condition, it could be early signs of cancer, it could be, like a nervous condition or mental condition, whatever it may be. Is that sort of where we're heading with this? Like this sort of preempting disease? It's like that movie, I can't remember, Tom Cruise, but for disease rather than crime.
No, but this is, I mean, the predictive world. No one really know, what it is, how we're going to use it, but this is where we're heading. We want, we were told prevention a few years back. Okay, preventing diabetes is not just telling you not to eat chips. It's doing a lot more. And predictive analytics are this new way of doing medicine. We can do a genetic test before you were born, but we can also tell you that you've walked too much, too less. And the doctors are going to have so many useful tools that they will do their job even better, faster, and not miss. The worst thing, I'm not a doctor, but I'm sure the worst thing is to see someone go because you've missed it. Yeah. And so you're giving them the options to continue to be God so that they're not being removed, because no one can be removed as a doctor. There are a lot of things that, we have to see, but I think this is where we're going, predictives for sure.
Okay,
I
very
had something
interesting.
in my mind and I forgot then.
Yeah, maybe it's the Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah, the Tom Cruise just threw me off.
All right, let's talk about how you actually make money out of this then. So what is the revenue model for this? Are you charging the users, or are you charging the people on the other side collecting the data?
So the app is free, so we're not making money from the users themselves. There's probably there are different. A lot of us are trying different models, but there is a way of selling probably premium things to the users that would want more. They want more predictive. This is not in the model we're in yet. Then we have different stakeholders that are buying things from us. And you're right, there is the data, but the data is a bad word in our world, is that we have to process the data, aggregate the data, make some sense out of data. So you can think about insurers. They want to know if they can prevent an A&E, because it costs so much money to them. They can prevent the disability, the absence. They're going to have to pay. So the predictive, the prevention is where we're heading with insurers. The pharmaceutical industry wants to do virtual trials in the real world, go everywhere, not have depends on doctors on the office and not being told that they're not doing the real world way. So the virtual clinical recruitment of patients is one. The insights, knowing, I think the pharmaceutical industry was missing this link with patients directly, because they're not allowed to talk to them. It's only the doctor. So we're giving them an eye of what is happening in the real world in an aggregated and anonymized way. Of course, this is where we became really strong in technology, but we can give them an eye. I mean, they deserve to. They worked 20 years on developing something, and suddenly we're saying, no, only the doctors will know. So this is one. And then the doctors would want to use this app. Monetizing is a difficult thing with doctors, but I think the fact that they want to do publications, registries, we can be the largest registry in neurology. So there is another option. So different ways to monetize. It's definitely a B2B than a B2C, because consumers are not keen on paying yet.
But it's definitely the data. Is the key. The real gold mine that you're sitting on here.
But you need to be careful how you use it and process it.
But it's anonymized, like you say, in many cases. So it's interesting as well, you mentioned like insurance, because I imagine that there may be, I don't know about the insurance of very systemic diseases, for example, like diabetes, for example. If you're a diabetes sufferer, you still need life insurance, you still need travel insurance, all these different kind of insurance, and health insurance and so on. And it's a growing market. Yet there must be a lot of people who are not getting insured, because generally, if you took the aggregate spread, they're probably a risky population than normal people who don't have diabetes. Yet, if that condition was managed, then possibly it could be, they could bring those sort of risks premiums right down to the average population, right? Just like with driving, if you can monitor somebody's driving, if it could be managed, then, even if they're an 18-year-old kid, they can probably drive as safely as your average family person, right? So what I'm thinking about is that, there are probably a lot of people who don't get insured because their premiums are too high, because it's too risky. It could be, for example, like HIV sufferers, right? Because it's an expensive, well, I know the costs are coming right down, but a very expensive condition to treat. But yet, if it was managed properly and they had that sort of real world, into the wild data, they could actually bring those premiums right down and then give cover to those people who never had cover before because they were too expensive. Is that something? I'm just sort of freestyle thinking forward about where this could apply beyond simply pharmaceutical. There's also the whole insurance and life insurance, health insurance area.
I think it's so the insurance world is not an ugly world, but it's an old world, and they're changing. And I'm not speaking for the CEO here. I mean, I know that he had a hard time thinking about insurers because we are coming with this idea that they would refuse someone if we tell them something. So we come up with this. We're not going to tell the insurer the name of the person that shouldn't be insured for his risk premium to be blah, blah, blah. But what we can do is work with the insurers to be on at the right moment, prevent, and at the right moment help and reduce what it's going to cost to the insurers, but still be there. Now, in the long run, can we insure everyone? I'm sure this is where we're heading. Everyone wants to be insured. And to be honest, you see me here. I'm not suffering from migraine. My insurer refused to insure my unborn child. And I was like, okay, then I'm just going to go see your neighbor. I mean, this is crazy. On what
basis?
The basis, they say that because I was not insured with them before, that you need 2 weeks discharge after they're discharged to insure him. They say, yeah, but that's at the time they were born that I need you, yeah? They refuse. So you're thinking, how am I going to get them to insure me anyway with this predicted? I don't know. It's coming, but I know a lot of insurers are coming to us to give more services. You see how the pharma has shifted to give solutions beyond the pill? The insurers are coming and shifting to provide more solutions. The drug prices are coming down, but they're working for a lot more people, more diagnosed. So you could think the insurers are going to come down and insure a lot more people because statistically it makes sense. They're coming. They want to offer you a second consultation. They want to offer you a prevention wellness program because they know that the more they offer, the more people are healthy and the better it is for them as a whole. I mean, it's statistic. If we're all behaving well, it's going to come. So it's coming. Insurers know that they're going to run out of business at some point if they continue to do what they're doing because we're able to predict so many things and they want to do it the same. So I hope we're changing the world for the best and then the insurers will come down. And then the next time I have a baby, I'm not having a baby, they will insure
run out
me.
of continence, yeah. I mean, the whole insurance thing, it's really just, it's the outliers that drive up the premiums for everybody. And the outliers probably are people that could be managed.
They could be helped.
Yeah, exactly.
Help because sometimes genetics don't help you, so you have to be helped during your life. I was listening to many podcasts before I came here because I didn't want to sound too bad, and I have no idea how it sounds. But I was listening to Tim O'Reilly talking about his last book, WTF. I loved this title, and I was thinking, I mean, he was really saying the future belongs to us. We will do something great with the future if we want to. So this is what we have to believe. And when we're starting with this ego thing, it's we believe we can change the world for the best. Because otherwise we're not here, not in the healthcare world. I don't believe any of the startup in the healthcare just want to be there for entrepreneur or money. We want to be there because we believe we're going to change the world for the future for the best. And you will ask any of the co-founders of any startups in digital health, they've had an issue in their family.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
all have.
Yeah.
And that's what made you realize, oh, you're human.
Yeah.
And I need help.
Yeah.
All of us do need help.
Okay. Well, let's talk then about who's involved on this mission.
Okay.
The crazy ones, but I think that's said in a very sort of like complimentary and positive tone. That
Yes.
Crazy in the sense that maybe they just challenge the status quo. So to change the world, you have to be a little bit out of the comfort zone. So back into the pitch deck, and have a look at slide 17. You've got the lineup here of the team. Maybe you can talk about a little bit about who everybody here is, because there's a big slide here with what we've got 21 people up here.
Yes. So there's the nice
okay.
picture, and then it evolves, and so that I gave you the latest pictures.
Okay.
Can tell you who they are.
Yeah, with that, well, we don't have time to go through all 21, so maybe you can just tell about where everybody came from generally. You know, what's the background? Where did people meet? And what sort of
what gathers them around the table?
Exactly. I'm just curious about the culture a little bit as well. So where did they all come from? Generally, is there a lot from France, or what's the background there?
So there's definitely a French batch, and you can see them by our names. So the French batch is because probably French are complex and they like to have complex way of talking, so we understand each other. Yeah. So there are a bunch of us. We're great. France is known to be great at solving problems, and that's why we're here. You have a line of tech people, and they come from around the world. We have people from Singapore, China, India, and to be honest, they're just good developer, and they have all good ethics. And then there's a batch of people that are commercial, and the commercial are the bad guys here, because we are supposed to make money out of it. But all of us that are in commercial came from a patient view, either public health, nurses, pharmacists. I came from the pharmaceutical industry. We all believe that we could do something for the patients. And then there's a batch that I didn't talk about, but the data analysts and scientists. And those guys are the one that have to deal with statistics and make meaningful comments because they're talking about people. Okay. And I think this is the scars. Why I came and why I wanted to come is because this war of talents is happening everywhere around the world. And if anyone were to study something today, they should study data, because they're scarce, you say? Or
yeah.
Scars?
Scarce. Yeah.
So data, we have 4 or 5, and we increase every time, but they're the hard ones to find. I went to EDB and EDBI, say, do you have some more? Can you send them through us? Oh, everyone is going after them.
Yeah, exactly. The Facebooks and Googles are snapping them up. So your team's all here in Singapore?
Everyone is in Singapore. We have 2 people in Thailand, 1 in Vietnam. That's just life that happens. They got married or something. Right. But we're all based in Singapore.
Headquarters is here.
Because we're all from there. The co-founders and I all came from INSEAD.
But it's a Singapore company.
It's a Singapore incorporated company.
Okay. So obviously it's a big team. You're fundraising at the moment.
Yes, we are.
Can we talk a little bit about your fundraising?
Yes.
And we haven't talked about how old the company is. So when did you actually start the company?
So incorporation was 2014.
So you're 5 years in.
5 years
4 or 5
in.
years.
We're supposed to not be called ourselves a startup, but you don't really know when to stop. Yeah. Because 20, you still lack of cash. So we're raising 8 to 10 million. We're in the Series A batch. We had 2 million seeds funding, and we have 3 well-known VCs. We have Gree Venture, Partech, and Wavemaker. And so that was great because it's all around the world. And now we're raising 8 to 10 million in Series A. It got delayed for some reasons that we wanted to prove. Where the madness comes is you want to prove your point, and that's where we are. We've proven. The profitable part is just happened, and I think that's why we're more comfortable also, because you can choose.
So okay, in terms of where that money goes, so the 8 million, what's that to do? What would that fund?
It's a lot of investment in the people, but the people in the tech and the data team, because you need people to develop faster. This is a world where everything goes fast, and we need to accelerate now. So we're launching in Q2 the second app. We need to have 45 million within the next 2 to 3 years on the platforms, and
45 million users.
And have at least 4 apps to be running. And this is accelerations. And you can see Apple, Facebook, Amazon all making the headlines to say we're going in healthcare. They have the data guys, yeah? What they don't have now is probably the background of predictors, but they will learn faster. We need to accelerate. And we have probably 1 to 2 years to do that.
Right. So are you competing against the Apples of this world? Or?
I don't think we're competing, but the risk is that they find another angle or buy all of us or aggregate all of us. Yeah. It's a good way out. To be honest, let's not just cry ourselves. Yeah? But Apple is not making the best phones anymore because, it's improving. 8, 9, 10, fine. But it has to go into another directions, and
services,
health, the services, and health is
devices,
the big thing. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so the 8 million, 8 to 10 is really to fund the rollout. Obviously, the people, the tech, new apps as well,
and
user acquisition, and user acquisition is purely through the App Store.
So half is ads.
Yeah.
and half is organic. We want to enter more partnerships. So we're partnering with community and with other apps. And that's an investment. I mean, you need to spend either time or money to make those partnership work. But it's acquisition is half now organic, half advertising.
Right. And how does the advertising work? Is it like Facebook ads
Yes,
or like
yes.
App Store ads?
Yes.
Okay. So
Facebook is the key word, but at this point, Facebook will bring us, it will be linear. We need to do a rupture now. We need to go not to be 2.5 million by the end of the year, but to be 4 millions.
Yeah.
And to do that rupture, it can't be Facebook only.
Okay.
And they know how to monitor your growth. They're not going to give you a lot more.
Yeah.
Because
they'll squeeze everything out.
They do. They control a lot of things.
We like them for that. Okay. So, excellent. I think that it's been a very interesting journey into the world of Healint and also Maryline, and thank you for sharing your insights and your thoughts and your whys, why you're doing this. And I think as well, maybe we put it out there. I mean, obviously you're fundraising, you put it out what you need, and the kind of, you've mentioned some of the VCs you've got on board as well. So you're talking to institutional investors. What about the people that you want in your team? Because I imagine you're recruiting as well. Obviously there's hard skills. You talked about maybe data scientists. What about the mindset? So people watching this sometimes watch it because they're looking for teams to join, and they make the decision not necessarily on the product, often because of the industry syncs up with their background, but mostly because they like what you said. And that got me here, or it's that sort of why. Yeah, I'm on board. Like, I like what she's saying. I'm in a similar situation. I want to make this happen, right? So, mindset-wise, what kind of people are you looking for?
Oh God! Now I'm feeling I didn't convince anyone.
So I think you did a good job, but
I think if you need to want to work with people that are a bit stubborn. Like you said at the beginning, we're gonna bang our heads against the wall, and that's the hard skill. So you must see me going like crazy, thinking I didn't convince. How am I going to do it? And you need to be relaxed with that, because we're fighting here, and we believe in it. And you need to want to work for some people that believe. It's hard, and I think you need to look at who you're looking up. I only look up for people that are defending their ideas and fighting. That's the one that you want to work with, and those that will look at you in that sense. I think that's one. We're also looking at the US a lot. So I mean, if US is your dream, US is a huge market and moving fast. So we're going to have to have a team that can work with the Americans. The Americans are not, they're a special species, I guess. So we're a lot of Europeans and a lot of Asians here. We need more Americans mindset. So if you've studied there, if you know how to convince, and if you know how to see the world in a bigger picture, maybe, because we're too focused on solving problems and banging our heads in the team. But you need to want to work for people that believe and fight, because we are those ones.
Excellent. Love it. Maryline Marquet, Healint, thank you so much for coming on today. Put the call out there. What is the best way for people to get in touch with you? Is LinkedIn good for you? Does that work?
Yes. Healint.com, Maryline at Healint, and anywhere.
We'll put all on the show notes.
Okay, great. Thank you. But thank you so much for having me. I feel like, I'm a star today with those headsets, and it was a great feeling.
Well. I know you were a little bit nervous, but you've done a really good job, and merci beaucoup, and thank you so much with your ongoing journey. Wishing you all the best, and come back on as well in the future and give us an update on the journey.
Thank you. Thank you to the team, and thank you for those who listened to us today.
Excellent.
Thank you. Bye.